Welcome to MEDMEN. My name is Pim, and that's Andy.
And what are we talking about today, Pim?
Today, Andy, we are talking about measuring MEDDIC.
Ooh, two words you don't often hear, measurement and MEDDIC together. But like anything that you measure, there has to be common definitions, right? And that's why we love the common language definition so much, because from a measuring perspective, it can give you that language that you need to be able to start measuring things.
Yeah, think about even the most practical things. As you and I talk about cars all the time and speed, you're talking miles, I'm talking kilometers. Yeah. It's already becoming difficult. Even that difference is quite simple still, isn't it?
And if you removed in a MEDDIC concept, if you removed let's say a stakeholder name like champion, so all of a sudden, to your point, I'm talking about a key stakeholder, and you're talking about a VIP or a person of importance or whatever. You could have all kinds of different ways of talking about the same thing, and we'd be not able to measure across the impact of, for example, having a champion or not having a champion, or even getting even deeper about starting to look at how does having a qualified and tested champion early in an opportunity impact success rates across our organization. Things like that you're just not going to be able to do without that common language, because what you class as very important person, I class as key stakeholder, and they may have different definitions even within that. So you're going to be unable to measure.
You are absolutely right. And this is also why you don't necessarily need to wait until later on in a MEDDPICC initiative to start measuring, right? Because to your point there, you can already see like, hey, how many champions in the common definition do I have in my opportunities today? And what does that ultimately lead to, right? So you can start with it right away. We class that as leading indicators, like looking for those things and then measuring against it. And then this pulls through the entire customer life cycle. Right? Because like you've been talking about sales velocity for a while too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say it's further than that, as we've sort of evolved our thinking, where sales velocity typically talks about the sales process and the amount of opportunities you have, the value of those opportunities, conversion rate of those opportunities, and time to close those opportunities. That's sales velocity. But let's stretch it out even further than that. And let's start to look pre and post sale for the whole go-to-market team, because that's what they care about, the entire customer life cycle. So let's start to think about, well, actually, if you've got a really rock and roll go-to-market team, you should be considering from a positioning perspective, who are we trying to capture the attention of? So that would be a champion. Your ideal scenario is a lead comes in from someone that could be a champion for you, right? So as a marketing team, you want to be able to say, how impactful, how effective is our marketing at capturing the attention of champions? And therefore, like measuring that through, maybe actually it could be the case that there's a different persona. Maybe it's the economic buyer. You want to capture their attention. And if you've got the real, if you're really rocking and rolling, you'd have separate campaigns for different personas, but you want to be able to measure, is this messaging actually capturing the attention of that CFO who might be the economic buyer, or is it capturing the attention of maybe a director of finance who is the potential champion? And then that's the start. Then we start to see how impactful are those champions. We're using champion a lot because it's such a clear example through the sales process. And then we win the deal. Well, how impactful is it that we're able to stay with our champions? Once we've gone live, and particularly the economic buyers as well, because typically they tend to sort of disengage, particularly if it's a solution sale. It's in place, it's doing its job, and they're kind of, at arm's length away from it at that point. But we still want to stay engaged with those people.
I think that's a really, really interesting one, because typically you would want to stay focused on those stakeholders, but also you can look at another element here, the M3, which is the mutual goal that you would have with a customer. How many of the M3s that we define with those customers out there do we actually deliver and go back to becoming an M1, right? And so as you can see, it can get really versatile, but it will also say that ultimately measuring MEDDIC stays simple, right? Because of the common language that you can spread across the entire go-to-market motion, the entire customer life cycle. So before selling and closing in pipeline generation, you're really measuring your ability to create pipeline to begin with by way of focusing on those personas, see what resonates, and course correct on the basis of that. In selling and closing, you're measuring the effectiveness of selling revenue output. And then the last part that you said is like, what is our ability to upsell and renew all of those customers, tie them together, what do you have? Go-to-market velocity.
Yeah, you sparked something in me as well there, which is talking about the M3s, because as you'll know, we have this framework, value framework, that talks about M1s being those use cases, the kind of hypothesis of value through to proven value that we have with real customers that allows field sales teams, go-to-market teams to position, this is the kind of value we can bring to you. And of course, it's in MEDDIC language. It talks about, what's the pain without this use case? What's the value in solving it? How do you measure that value through to, what decision criteria the customer has to have to replicate it, what it matters to the champion, who it matters to the economic buyer, who you're competing against with this use case and why it's a superior solution, which then of course captures the customer's attention. And hopefully if it interests them, then you evolve that to an M2, which is where you personalize those metrics inside of that use case to that customer. Now, even in that example there, measuring that is incredibly powerful, because you imagine if you're an organization that has, let's say, 10 M1s, 10 popular use cases that really tell the story of how your solution delivers value in use case format, right, in storytelling format. If you imagine you've got those 10 and then you start to measure, okay, well, which M1s always make it to an M2? Which use case, when I tell it to the customer, they go, yes, that's what we want. And please tell me you've told me how that helped an existing customer of yours. Tell me what that would mean for me. How would that help me and my business? What's that business case look like? And if you start to, as a go-to-market team, see that there's an M1 that always moves through, if you're a go-to-market team, if you're a marketing team, you should be going, wow, that really resonates with the market. We need to, organize a webinar about that M1. We need to put some paid media behind it. We need to promote this. Probably needs its own landing page on the website. And then the same story goes through to those M2s, which M2s always convert to M3s, which means that you've won the customer and you're now delivering that value. And that measuring through, which basically how your customers want to use your solution, or how your solution resonates with your customers, through to how they want to use it, through to how they are using it and the success they're getting from using it, connects that whole go-to-market team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so everything that you're talking about there is describing when you start measuring MEDDIC, you will get a lot of clarity on what works, but then also what you can do even better to create more results, right? As a go-to-market team. So if you think about the old saying, you cannot improve what you don't measure, this is absolutely it. If you're serious about MEDDIC, you want to measure it so that you can constantly get better.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of this is we're talking about individuals. If you're a sales leader and you're looking at individual performance, or an individual looking at your own performance, through to the side, the team, the pod, through to the region, through to the theatre, through to the global scale. And at any stage of the customer engagement lifecycle, you can start to have this common language to be able to measure everything to do with value, everything to do with stakeholders, and everything to do with process.
Well, here's to measuring MEDDIC.
Cheers.
Cheers.